Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Catherine Lorimer's Guide to Life podcast. How are you all doing? Thanks very much for listening. Again, amazing viewing figures, ecstatic, and great feedback from some of my work colleagues. So apparently they think they're quite good. So, I'm happy with that. That's really good. So it's nearly Halloween. Well, actually, when you get this, it will be Halloween. It'll have been Halloween, in fact. But I'm going to record this one because I took Mr Bumble and I. We went on a ghost tour. So in Chester, apparently Chester, where I'm from, is one of the most haunted cities in the UK. Per square metre, there's like loads of ghosts, shed loads. I probably should have the exact figures, but I don't. And I've actually left my phone downstairs on charge because I've just got back from holiday. Yeah, I'm not going to Google it. It might not be right anyway, let's face it. I could just make something up, couldn't I? So per square metre of Chester, there's 5 ghosts. How does that sound? Does that sound believable? Yeah, you have to, which is just why I'm on this subject, you have to always, when someone spouts a statistic at you, take it with a pinch of salt and work out exactly, how they came about that statistic. Where did they get it from? Because statistics, you just be really, really careful because you can make a statistic say whatever you want it to say. Yeah, so anyway, we went on a ghost tour. So if you want to go on a ghost tour, they're really, really great. I thought, I booked on that. I was like, I know it might be about sort of 4 people on it, 30, okay? And apparently, sort of around about now, sort of October time, they do 3 tours, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and sometimes they have to have 3 tour guides because there can be like up to 120 people at a tour. So they're really, really popular. And they do them sort of in quite a few places as well, particularly this time of year, obviously, because it's haunting time of year. I don't think I've got a ghost sign. I can do cricket. It's not really ghosty, but it's the best I've got to offer. Okay, right. So anyway, hopefully you're doing okay. I have been on holiday. If you checked out my Insta gravy post, I have been off to Gran Canaria. That's where we were. Sneaked along with Mr Bumble and his lovely daughter Elle. And had a few days in the sunshine. Enjoyed my birthday. It was absolutely fantastic. Such a good time, especially this time of year to go and get some sunshine. Came back and it was absolutely lashing it down at Manchester Airport. Of course, I hadn't taken a coat, but managed to survive, not getting too wet. Okay, so I've actually been really organised. I've actually written it out. And there were some notes. I've got an A4 sheet. There's sort of 2 sides, which is really unusual for me. Right, let me just turn the microphone down again, turn my headphones up so that makes sure that's okay. Sorry, I've been faffing around with the sound. I had a bit of an issue. I don't do my sound check normally. I started off and I'm like, why can't I hear myself in the microphone? Yeah, there's 2 switches at the back, 2 plugs. One's marked 1, the other marks 2. Yeah, and the headphones were plugged into 1 and the microphone was plugged into 2. Never done that before, but there we go. These things happen, don't they? Okay, yeah, so I'm chatting about the Chester, the ghost haunt. Okay, so, right. Now, does anyone think, if you don't know anything about Chester, obviously if you live in Chester, you're going to know a little bit about Chester. So it was actually, it used to be the capital during Roman times. It was called Diva. And the main thing for that is because where the race course is now, and it's the Rue D race course, okay, D is obviously a river. So that would give you an indication that at some point that was a body of water. And it was like a port. So it was really, really useful. It also saw a lot of fighting times during the Civil War. It was a sort of Chester was the town of the king, and it was a really important city and a military base as well for several kings because they used it to go and conquer Wales. And also, it was quite exciting. Because I can't remember if I've told this before, but I'll tell you again anyway. I mentioned to the tour guide, I said, my mum remembers seeing something when she was walking. I think it's Northgate Street. And near enough opposite the Pied Bull, said she looked down a little street. And she saw a kind of a guy dressed all in black, not from this time, like a cloak and something. And he just went, yeah, that'll be the coachman ghost. And I was like, ooh, how exciting. People have kind of seen things. So when we were there as well, he was talking behind us about things in the town hall. And he said there's a security guard that works. They didn't really believe in ghosts. He's quite, he's a bit of a skeptic. He said, but he's seen so many things on videos and then CCTV footage when he's been kind of there that he just He believes now because he's gone and there's no one there, but he's definitely seen something and things have moved. And when we were there, actually, I thought I saw something at the window. I just thought maybe it was just somebody looking out, but I'm not sure. I'm still torn on that one. But anyway, there's a few ghosts, but there's one kind of key ghost in Chester which I knew about. She's absolutely legendary. And she's the reason why there's no doubt whatsoever in my mind that ghosts definitely do exist. Okay, her name's Sarah, right? And she's known, it's not I call this anymore, I think it's a mobile phone shop, but years and years ago, it used to be Thornton's chocolate shop. And I remember a friend of a friend lived there, and apparently there was a really weird feeling in the storeroom. They didn't like to go there. Anyway, so Sarah, the ghost from Thornton's chocolate shop, apparently they've heard lots of stomping and thumping from an empty upstairs room, and a strange wailing noise as well. Lights flicker on and off, doors open and close on their own. And now Sarah's a jilted bride who hung herself up in that shop in the attic. Apparently she went off to meet her and her beloved, and he didn't show up. So, yeah, she killed herself. And when it was a tobacconist shop, which it was before it was a Thornton shop, apparently staff would hear footsteps and a woman sobbing, and doors would open, and a picture also fell to the floor. And then apparently one day, I think it was when it was a Thornton shop, an American tourist was kind of like going, I don't believe in this. And she was pushed downstairs. So that was quite significant. There was another story as well about one of the tobacconists, one of the people who worked there getting pushed down the stairs as well. So it's not just a one-off. Apparently she scared off some burglars, okay, who broke in. They broke into the shop, and they actually fled in such a hurry, right, that they left their tools and a full set of fingerprints behind. So I don't know what she did, but she must have really scared them. Anyway, 1981, okay, she took a real dislike to the Valentine's chocolate display boxes. Okay, so there were lots of like heart-shaped boxes, okay, and there were normal chocolate boxes. So when the staff came in one morning, all the heart-shaped boxes had been pulled from the shelves and chucked onto the floor, and the ordinary boxes was just left still stacked on the shelves. And like that's kind of poltergeisty behaviour. And apparently there's most of the action or the activity was in the cellar as well, the top floor. Apparently in the cellar, an electrician went down there to read the meter. He wasn't there for long because he felt he was being watched by something really unpleasant. And then right next door as well, used to be Woolworths in the same sort of cellar area. A workman went down and they just said, just be careful about the cellar because, and the guy went, don't be ridiculous. Apparently there was a delivery, did I say it was a delivery guy? Went down there and he was there literally probably about a minute, and he said, I'm not going back down there again. and when they were kind of looking for staff, they always used to send them down to cellar, and thought, well, if you can cope with down the cellar, which is where the storage room is, you'll be all right. Because the amount of staff that they got through that wouldn't go into the cellar was unbelievable. Now, another story as well, and I'd heard this one before, and someone had pointed it out to me. It's the Marlborough Arms, but it's actually Marlborough Arms. Okay, it's a misspelling. It should be Marlborough Arms, but it's Marlborough. There's a 2 O and an R's in it, and then the sign was misspelt. Okay, on the pump front in the 19th century. The story behind this one is that the sign writer, kind of went off, was left on his own in the pub, went down to the cellar for a beer, and he met the ghost of a former landlord who had slit his throat, and he was disturbed so much by that sight that he didn't notice that he had a spelling error. Do I believe that one? No, if I'm honest, I don't. I think it's more likely that he helped himself to several pints of beer, okay, and was a bit too drunk to realise that he'd made a spelling mistake and then blamed it on the ghost. I don't believe that one. The Sarah one I do, because as I say, there have been so many things that she's done. She was legendary. We all knew who she is. Anyone who's from Chester knows about Sarah Ghost. Also, one that we've all heard about as well is a Roman soldier, which, given it was like a Roman fortress, then it's not really that surprising. You should sort of see a Roman soldier. And it's said to walk the walls by Pepper Street. Apparently, an officer fell in love with a Celtic girl, and he went off to meet her one day. Whether or not it was a setup, I don't know. It probably was. But the Celt warriors got in when he was away because he was supposed to be on watch and killed all his men. And she didn't turn up. So chances are it was a bit of a setup. And he came back and killed himself. And apparently he's seen still patrolling in that whole area. Now, what was interesting was that they said apparently he's seen kind of patrolling on the walls. However, that wall in that particular one in Pepper Street, it wasn't there. It wasn't in existence at that time because it's not. You've got Eastgate, Bridge Street, Northgate, and what's the other one? I can't remember. Northgate, Eastgate, Westgate, Eastgate, Westgate. Is it Westgate? Watergate Street. That's it, Watergate Street. So the Pepper Street one actually wasn't there, but because it was a Roman amphitheatre and obviously it went up, it would have been a big hill. So it's actually sort of patrolling along the kind of the big hill thing. And there's also St John's Cathedral, which is fairly close to that. And it was a bit creepy. We kind of went in there at night and it was a little bit creepy. There's a grey monk, apparently, who walks around the cathedral, last seen in the 1970s. And there's various sort of like, tales of like drunken people seeing these things. But, you have to take them with a little bit of a pinch of salt, don't you? Because you don't know if they kind of made it up for some particular reason. But on the cathedral wall, actually, there's kind of like a lead coffin halfway. It's right at the top and it's quite small. And it's really, really bizarre. And there's a story that one of the nuns, and she died when she was quite young, and she wanted to be buried where she could be really close to God, and so they stuck this lead coffin up there. However, lead's coffin is usually associated with vampires, isn't it? And also it's a strange small shape, so you got to wonder, what was in there. But whatever it is, it's now been released because the coffin's empty and the wall's exposed. It's all fallen down and everything. So that's an interesting one. Taxi driver ghost. This was, I don't know, I hope this is true. Okay, I've never heard about this, but apparently it is. Apparently, so when you go to Chester and you go to the town square, there's kind of like an archway through to the cathedral. Taxis apparently do not pick up from there. Uber drivers do, obviously, because that's where they send you to, but taxi drivers do not pick up from there. Okay. And I'm wondering, actually, because when I've done my Uber, that's where it tells you to stand. And I'm wondering if they've probably done that on purpose. But yeah, then this is the reason. Okay, so a man in a brown suit, which apparently this guy has been seen in a few different places in Chester. So there's been a few sightings in the Old City Hospital. Apparently, when it's closed in 1991, it was the old infirmary. It's now houses. I'll be interested to see if anybody's kind of been seen, in that time. But apparently, there were beds being moved around in closed wards, voices and footsteps from empty wards. And apparently a man dressed in a brown suit went to visit his mother in 1996. But apparently the staff said, he actually died a few years earlier, which was, a bit kind of interesting. And what else happened? Yes, so the taxi driver goes. So apparently the story is that the taxi driver, a man in a brown suit, and apparently 3 or 4 taxi drivers have been caught out with this. A guy in a brown suit hails a taxi, gets in and says, I want to go to, I can't remember exactly where it was. I want to say like Pentra Hulkin. We'll just say that way. And the taxi's like, all right, okay. And that's a fair trek. Okay. It's probably 20-30 minute drive out of Chester. And the taxi driver keeps coming, looking back at the guy and saying, okay, where do you want dropping off? And the guy just said, just keep driving. It's, a bit further along. And this conversation keeps repeating and goes a bit further. And the taxi driver looks at it and in the rear view mirror and says, right, whereabouts is it, mate? And he said, it's just a bit further along. Okay, keeps on driving. And then apparently they get to a certain point and then the taxi driver looks up and the passenger's gone. Nobody there. Now, apparently that has happened a few times, okay? And as I say, consequently, taxi drivers will not pick anybody up from that part of Chester. So that's quite interesting. So I reckon that's probably true, but I don't know. And nobody else has ever sort of told me that, so I don't know how true it is. Bluebell Inn. Henrietta apparently waited for her royalist lover to return from the Battle of Rowton Moor, which I covered last week. Incidentally, the guy on the tour agreed with me about that. He was saying, apparently, there's loads of ghosts at Rowton Moor. He said, but he's never really heard anything. There's never any evidence of anything, which is exactly what I thought. So that was quite interesting. But anyway, on discovering that he had been killed, she committed suicide in the cellar of the Bluebell Inn. And apparently she's quite often seen walking up the cellar to an upstairs window. Now, Ye Old King's Head. So this is on Bridge Street. Next to it as well, there's another old pub, the Bear and Billet. And I'll come to that in a minute. But Ye Old King's Head, I mean, it's a pretty old pub. It's 16, it's an old probably coaching inn. It's really, really old. It's more like a big Tudor building. Apparently they do like ghost stays in apparently the top 3 rooms, because apparently they've got quite a lot of kind of paranormal activity, and you can kind of stay over. Our tour guide had stayed over, but didn't actually say if he'd seen anything. But anyway, the story is that 2 men killed each other fighting over a woman, and the woman is said, and the woman and the 2 men are said to haunt the upstairs. Apparently the woman, she had a few children, 3 children. They're not really sure what happened to the children, but apparently quite often there are 3 child ghosts that are seen in there as well. So if you do fancy having a stay over in a haunted place, Mr Bumble said, do I fancy that? I was like, no, you're all right, thank you very much. I think I'll pass on that one. I have no desire to kind of go there and sort of be really, really scared. Anyway, so you can go and do that. That's like a real thing. It's kind of, and I think they've like proper like haunted showing and stuff like that. I can't remember what the TV series is. I should be a bit more professional, shouldn't I? Do a bit more research, but there we go. So Bear and Billet, which is down the way from the Old King's Head. A phantom maid, apparently, who died of starvation after being locked in her room, haunts the staircase and only appears to men, apparently. And there's also been lots of reports of poltergeist activity there as well. Opposite as well, the Old King's Head, there's like an old doll shop. It's unfortunately closed, and I did have a picture of it because I went there and it was really, really creepy. But apparently there have been quite a lot of paranormal activity in that particular shop. And as I say, Chester is a really, really old city. It's got so much history behind it. It's not, particularly unusual that you would kind of like hear of things like this. And there have been sightings as well of like Roman soldiers walking sort of like just, knees. So they're kind of like actually below the road surface underneath where their road should have been. And there are various sightings of different monks and things like that. So yeah, definitely go and have a go on the ghost tour, because if you haven't done it, it's only about a tenner. It's not that expensive. And it was so interesting because they actually cover quite a lot of the history of Chester as well. But I think the tour guide is the same guy who does the Roman soldier tour. Very, very knowledgeable guy. And it was thoroughly enjoyable. Really, really enjoyed it. Okay, so that's all for now. Yeah, just about covering just up to about 20 minutes. I hope you enjoyed Halloween. You get that? Right, I'm just going to have a quick look. I don't think I've got a ghosty one. No, unfortunately not. I can do a voice disguise. Hang on.
How does that sound?
Oh, that sounded quite creepy, didn't it?
Hang on. Ooh.
I hope you enjoyed Halloween. Well, I'm enjoying playing with my sound effects. Okay, thanks very much for listening, guys. Okay, hope you have a good week, and I'll catch you next time.